Today we are looking at the HL section of 2.1, the level of overall economic activity. We have three things to get through. That is, calculate nominal GDP from sets of national income data using the expenditure approach, calculate GNP/GNI from data, and calculate real GDP using the price deflator. None of this is overly difficult, but again, I must stress that students get these wrong in exams, so don't be one of these students. Firstly, we have to know how to calculate nominal GDP from a set of data. The key here is to remember the equation for GDP. GDP equals C plus I plus G plus X minus N. As this is already firmly entrenched in your brain, you shouldn't have any trouble working out nominal GDP from this data. So we'll look at the national income for Burma-Stan, and we'll see consumer spending of 12.3 billion plus investment spending of 4.2 billion plus government spending of 5.1 billion plus exports of goods and services of 4.2 billion minus imports of goods and services of 6.1 billion. Now you do have to show your working. In paper 3, this line here will get your mark, as will the answer. Now you do have to use the units. It's very important. So in this example you would write $19.7 billion. Don't give them a chance to take marks off of you. Next we need to calculate GNI, gross national income. As I'm sure you remember, this is just GDP plus net foreign income, or GDP plus income earned overseas minus income sent overseas. In the last slide, we had GDP of Burma-Stan as $19.7 billion. To this, we add $2.1 billion earned abroad and sent home to Australia, minus the $3.2 billion of income earned in Burma-Stan and sent overseas. Again, you need to show your working like so, even though the maths is simple, and write your units when you give your answer. So really, 1 mark for this, 1 mark for that. That's what you can expect in the exam. Now, we're calculating real GDP using the GDP deflator. The GDP deflator is a price index that shows the increase in prices as compared to a base year. It deflates the level of nominal GDP. Now, by knowing nominal GDP and the deflator, how much prices have gone up, we can determine real GDP. Here we have a set of nominal GDP data and GDP deflators. 2008, where the GDP deflator is 100, is the base year. The equation to determine real GDP is as follows. Real GDP equals nominal GDP divided by the GDP deflator times 100. So real GDP for 2008 is $212.5 billion. It's exactly the same as nominal GDP because prices haven't gone up. You can check that by entering that into the equation. Now, let's look at 2009. All we have to do is plug in the numbers. So nominal GDP is $220.4 billion and the GDP deflator is 103.2. Now that means the prices have increased 3.2% since the base year. Doing the calculation, real GDP comes out to be $213.57 billion. Again, we're careful to show our working, and use the units in our answer. So I want you to pause now and work out the real GDP values for 2010 and 2011. Okay, so you should have got these figures here. If you didn't, check back through your working to see what happened. Now, some students can be confused by the term deflator, so I'll try to illustrate it here by looking at the GDP figures for 2011. Here we see the nominal GDP of $220.4 billion. this isn't real GDP, this is GDP inflated by inflation. After using the GDP deflator, we find that real GDP is equal to $218.48 billion. The inflated GDP figure has now been deflated, just like a balloon, so to a number that can be useful for year-to-year comparisons. And that is the HL content for 2.1. We'll go through some practice exercises in class, as well as do a bit of a revision.